Hello, and welcome to the Deal Breakdown Podcast, Episode 8. I'm Wesley with Maton Real Estate, your buyer specialist.
And my name is Phong Tran, your seller specialist, and I'm from Tran Property Group.
And together, we are
the
the Deal Breakdown, Episode 8, and that means a transaction story.
Oh,
And
you always got the interesting ones, Wes.
Whee! Because I'm having so much fun. This is a seller, so see where Phong Tran, the seller specialist, comes in. So I'll be quick here. I describe the setting. I did mention this a little bit before in a different transaction story. These are the people that were taken advantage of by their buyer's agent 2 years ago. Okay. Well, this is the follow-up to that whole transaction story that we gave last time. The transaction has closed as of Friday. So just a few days ago. So now I can tell you how it all shook out. So, Phong, I'm just going to ask you a series of questions and lead you down the path of this transaction story.
Yeah, let's do it.
When you sit down with a seller at a listing appointment, what are some important questions that you are asking them about the house and everything in general?
When it comes to the house, those are pretty standard. How the roof is, any updates to the property. Obviously, you're there, so you can also see age of appliances, age of furnace, HVAC, siding, major items. I'm not really too nitpicky on like the age of the floor, when did you paint. I'm mostly focusing on structural issues.
Okay, I'll stop you there. So, great questions. So, as a real estate agent, you're coming in, and I'm sure, like you said, you're looking at age of things. You're looking at the, I guess, pitfalls that might come up in a transaction and things that an inspector is going to call for the buyer, right?
Right. Yep.
What are some other things you're asking or looking for?
With the house itself?
No.
Or just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking why they're moving, mortgage, balance, what's their timeline, what's their price, obviously. Did that answer your question?
No, yeah, those are all good. So you mentioned mortgage and balance. Why are you asking those?
So I can calculate.
Taxes.
Yeah, so I can calculate like what their seller proceeds after all fees, commissions, title insurance, whatnot.
Why is that also important?
It's especially important if they're trying to essentially transfer the equity, if any, into the next property that they're either upsizing, downsizing, or if they're not, maybe they're just going to Mexico and buying a lot of margaritas with the proceeds.
Sure.
But having the net proceeds in front of them, knowing what they're going to make is important.
Absolutely. Go one deeper. Why is it important to know the balance?
Why is it important to know the balance?
Go same line or scenario. Even worse than finding out what their down payment's going to be.
Have enough equity, short sale territory, maybe?
There he is. Okay, correct. Okay.
Especially after all fees and commissions. Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, what Phong is getting at is making sure that the seller is going to walk away with something and not owe something. Okay. Underwater, right? The other thing he's looking at is potential pitfalls, because in a real estate transaction, a buyer comes and they offer a certain price. And as a seller's agent, you're presenting that to your seller, right? Okay. And you're presenting that to your seller. Let's play this scenario out. Let's say you have it listed for $500,000. They $450 on the house. The offer comes in at $475. What are you going to talk to them about?
It's essentially pretty close. I mean, there's a 0.5% in closing costs. Closing costs for a seller is like the owner's policy, title insurance, government transfer fee, and if there's like HOAs, stuff like that. And then maybe if the commission is anywhere between 4 to 6%, that could be like $20,000. And so at $475, their mortgage is at $450. It sounds like they will probably be underwater with that offer.
Correct. Okay. And then also something you're probably thinking about, and you touched on it when you're first asking them questions, is maybe things got to get fixed, right? Some things need to be repaired. So you get for $475. Ooh, okay, we're kind of real close. God forbid something comes up in the inspection. You're probably saying, I don't know if this is possible.
In terms of like repairs?
Sure.
I'd probably negotiate as is then at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where the asking price is, how long it's been on the market.
Totally. Okay. So, with all that being said, let's talk about this. Now, obviously, we know that these sellers were taken advantage of, and that's written in stone. That's what it is. They have this home. Their motivation to sell is because they cannot afford this home after the 2-1 buy down that we discussed before. Okay. Now, the market is what the market is. You have it listed at a certain price, and you come back to your sellers asking for a price reduction. Okay. Um, let's just throw out some numbers. 600,000 is the one that you start the listing at. Okay. You're told that they owe 522 on the mortgage. Okay. You get some wiggle room. He's doing math, everybody. But you got some wiggle room, right? I did the math. Right now he's doing his 0.935, and then he's calculating some other things. 522 mortgage.
And you're walking away with anywhere between $38,000 to $43,000.
Beautiful. It's the same math I did. Now, let's say nobody's coming in, nobody's making offers, no showings, no offers. What's your first call? Price drop, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Price drop to 575. Do some more math, Phong. 75 is now your new price point. What are you walking away with? You have 522.
Anywhere between, like 12 to $16,000.
Beautiful. 12 to 16. Now, we got an offer at 585. 10K back in closing costs. So essentially, asking price, because that's what we dropped to. We dropped to 575. Whole time I'm doing math. By the way, make sure this is possible. And I straight up told him, I'm like, that roof's going to be an issue. Just like Phong is an investigator in his listing appointments. I remember my listing appointment with them saying this roof is going to be an issue. I can already tell. It's old. It's original. This was built 20 plus years ago. This roof is at the end of its life here in the Pacific Northwest. So I said, hey, this is a great offer. They're not going to go for the as is. They're giving us asking price. I think it's a great offer. We should go for it. We go into escrow and they have an inspection. What does the inspection bring up? Of course, the roof. This roof is leaking, boys and girls, in like 20 places, is what I'm told. It's bad and it needs to be replaced. And at this moment, obviously the buyer's agent, cool guy, he's working with me and he's like, hey, we're getting a roofing guy out there. If you want your own to check, absolutely. And I absolutely did that. And both contractors came back at almost exactly the same number, 16 grand. Okay. Full replacement of a roof. Now the buyers had the roof and some other things on this repair or an inspection response. If you're in Washington, saying we want these things fixed and we will end our inspection contingency. We have the bids and I'm doing the math. Okay. You can walk away with some money. You're not going to be underwater. They're razor thin. Okay. And that's when hell broke loose with this roof. At that moment, it went from them not being able to buy a house, right, to they need a rental now because they won't have really any money for a down payment or a house. Okay. And that was definitely tough for them, right? Because we were looking at homes and then we started to wait until the inspection period was going to be over to just see what our net would be. So the roof needed to be replaced. Straight up 16 grand. Just straight up told them, if we don't replace this roof and we say no, screw yourself, they're probably going to back out. And that's what they've said. They're going to back out. It's the roofer bust. And we're going back on market knowing the same exact information. The roof is screwed, let alone if a buyer's still going to pay us at asking price plus the roof, right? So the right move, I'm going to ask you, was to stay with these buyers. Would you say so?
In that specific situation? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would probably recommend that you cut your losses. It's a tough conversation. It's a tough pill to swallow as homeowners that you're not buying. You're downgrading into renting. But versus going back on market with, like you said, knowing everything about the inspection, the next buyers are going to ask the same damn thing. They're going to want a roof. Why are they going to buy a car with no hood? Yeah.
It's a great analogy. And not to mention, this is a material fact, everybody. A leaking roof is a material fact that I legally have to share. So that's what I said. I said, hey, and they gave me a sob story. Hey, the husband became the victim real quick here and said, we have 2 young kids. We need money for a rental. We're not going to sell this home, but we have to sell this home because we can't afford it. It's bad. Tons and tons of victim mentality. And I said, we're coming up on the time where you can't afford it. It's going to be worse to be foreclosed on than to walk away and figure this out, right? We should agree to this roof. A lot of tough conversations later, just to move on with this story, we agreed to the roof. We threw in the washer and dryer instead of doing any of the other repairs. By the way, seemed kind of necessary, but we were able to get through. So now appraisal comes in at value. Sounds great. We move to closing and we get sent the closing statement. On what's a closing statement?
A closing statement is a long form with a bunch of line items, anywhere between 25 to 50 line items. Typically states what the balance is being paid for, what the commission on each side is being paid for, what taxes are being returned, what taxes are being paid, what all the escrow fees are, title insurance, government transfer fee, recording fees. It's essentially a large receipt of buying a house,
Yep.
but it's a very official receipt.
A large receipt that tells you at the end of the day, after everything's been agreed upon,
What your seller net
what you're
proceeds.
getting. We got it.
It was negative.
Correct. They owed $4,300. So they went from I need $5,000
To I owe $5,000.
to I owe $4,300.
Right.
Probably the freak out, I can't even describe just the freak out that happened.
Why was the math off?
Glad you asked.
Was it the fact that they didn't know the true value of the mortgage balance? Was fees not accounted for? Was taxes not accounted for? What was the, I guess, the difference?
You hit it right at the first one. Right?
No, the mortgage balance.
Correct. So I had asked them multiple times their mortgage balance was, and he quoted me a very detailed number multiple times. And I said, where are you getting that from? Getting it right from the statement, right? From Rocket Mortgage. Okay. Well, I said, do you have that handy? Because if they're wrong, we need to tell them.
The title report should have showed the title report that they actually look at, that the owner that the homeowner actually has to sign off on. They should have known.
Yep. Well, they owed 528
instead of the 522
with paying off and interest. Okay. So that's where it came from.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, holy crap. I watched this client crash out in front of me, calling and texting at midnight, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. We're not signing this. We're ready to implode it. So, Phong, you're in this situation. What do you do?
I start negotiating. I start trying to recover the deal. I mean, everyone's at the closing table. He's got the statement. That means you're right there. You're at the finish line. I'd probably start talking to the buyer's agent and start negotiating. Now, what am I negotiating? I'm probably going to try to increase the price by whatever amount to save the deal, reduce commissions if needed. That's usually as a last measure. I don't like to do that just because we work so damn hard. I probably have to give less credit. They asked 10K initially, probably have to give them only 5K. Will that affect the financing? And so I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm going to try to brainstorm what would work best for the buyer as well as for the seller, because yes, we do have a fiduciary responsibility for our client, in this case, the seller, but at the same time, you're working your butt off to get everyone to the closing table. And if one party's not there, then no one gets there.
Okay. So beautifully done. Beautifully said. Way better than I would have said it. But yes, you go into firefighting mode. Who are you calling? Everybody. What ends up happening, just to cut to the chase so we can start talking about our feelings on it, is it's just not possible with the financing and the finances to move anything here. Okay. So it does come down to commission. It did come down to commission. We both, and shout out to the buyer's agent, we both did reduce our commission by a significant amount and got it done.
I think that's what matters. Commission is, I mean, this is our livelihood. This is how we feed our families, right? But if you look at the seller's situation and what they dealt with for the past couple of years being screwed over by a messy agent, I think at the end, the light is you truly helped the family. That's what matters. And
certainly
the buyer helped his client, of course.
I liked them until they got real bitter, real upset with me, and it got ugly. But
what have I always said? Sellers care about
the bottom. They're logical. They care about the bottom line. I get it. And no, I totally understand. And that's where I came from with this. And I'll talk more a little bit about my feelings now. So this was all happening last Thursday, right? And I woke up to these calls and messages. throughout the night because I was sleeping. I was just stressed out. And I went into the office and I talked with obviously people and I have never called my managing broker like many of our agents call with their like freak out moments. And I did it. And I said, "Hey, I've never had an anxiety call with you. I'm having one right now. What's your advice?" She said a lot of what you said, like go finding, go digging. And she goes, "At the end of the day, I trust you. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Honestly, I just want it to be freaking done. I just want it to be done. Yeah, I put in all this work, time, effort. I just want it to be done." And so at the end of the day, and I think something that needs to be said here is when you see that commission on the realtor side, they're not getting all of that. Okay. You see $10,000 for a realtor commission, they're not getting all that. So when we lower our commission, it's a massive hit. It's a massive hit. Let's not even talk about the upfront costs. It's a massive hit. And so it's just one of those things where, and honestly, you just got to have a strong enough pipeline. Talk to Andy, who you know. He said each deal becomes less shitty when you got a bunch of deals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they're moving into a rental. The buyers are getting a house. I might be getting screwed, but I'm making more than $0 if it imploded. But it's just a lesson learned. And honestly, like just keeping track of numbers consistently the whole time. And man, that razor thin stuff, if the market shifts just a little bit, what are you going to do?
Sink or swim.
Sink or swim.
Sink or swim.
So that's the story. Now let's talk like advice, I guess. What would you advise people, Phong, to avoid this situation?
I think in this specific situation, normally you get a prelim, which is a preliminary title report issued by the title company. This typically dictates who owns the property, what mortgage is it, how much they get paid. And that's the critical part, is what their mortgage balance is. And so if the homeowner had read this line, which they're supposed to, you guys should have known at the very beginning, maybe 1-2 weeks within the transaction, probably still within the inspection contingency, in my opinion, of what that true number would be. And so I think having that information on that prelim would have been extremely critical in avoiding the stress at the end of the deal. But you got it done, and that's, bravo to you.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's a learning moment for me, for sure. That's why I like working with buyers. The skies are blue.
I don't think you. I don't think you did anything wrong. To be honest, I think that homeowners should have just been. If they're potentially getting foreclosed on, you would think they would know what their mortgage balance is. Like when I go
just read further down the fucking statement. That's all it took.
Yeah, when I pay my mortgage balance every month, I could see what my balance is. Yeah, and so I think this would have all been avoided if he would have been a little bit more thorough considering the situation. But I feel for him. It's obviously stressful. They try to buy a house. They were first time buyers. Now they had to sell. Now they're downgrading to a rental. It took a heavy, heavy emotional toll on them. So I feel for them. But this industry, what I've learned working with especially sellers, because they're always logical, most of the time they all care about their bottom line. You really need like skin when you're in real estate. It's a tough business. Like you said, yes, you see $11,000-$12,000 on a statement. There's team splits. There's taxes that you have to set aside. There's the fact that you drove a lot. There's just a lot that goes in it that a lot of the consumers don't.
Yeah. And again, to really think, it's just knowledge, right? Knowledge is truly power, especially in this industry. And my advice to them would have been, don't buy that house 2 years ago. And understanding what the future holds. A lot of us are very nearsighted with things like buying a house or, God, bottom lines with the economy and whatnot. Not everybody's selling those stocks, right? It's the nearsightedness of it and finding yourself in this situation because of the mistake you made 2 years ago. So again, and we've said it before, buying a house is a great, great idea if you can afford it.
Yeah, if you are financially sound.
If you're not, you are rolling the dice. You are gambling with your money in your livelihood, especially with something like that buy down or hoping the rates come down for a refinance. You are gambling because nobody has a crystal ball ever. I wish. But yeah, that's that. Hey, it's closed. This is why I leave selling to you. Um, and yeah, that's the story. So hopefully you've all learned something. Make sure that you read your statements and make sure that you know exactly what the scenario on that home is going to be in a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years. You've planned for the future when you're making a decision as big as buying a home.
Yeah. That's why it's important to always do a little bit of due diligence whenever you're finding a seller specialist or even a buyer specialist, because this could be easily one of your biggest purchases, the biggest milestone that you have in your life.
Couldn't agree more. Awesome. Well, that's episode 8. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This is Westley, your buyer specialist.
And this is Phong, your seller specialist. Check it out.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care.